Okay, we'll start our first little rollout for today. I linked our teaching posts and then I had to relink them because I forgot to upload and link the video for Acts 23. So that I don't mean to spam everybody. And I know Facebook friends, they think, why are you... What I'm trying to do is just link the Tumblrs and all those sites. I not only put the link, but I put the actual text, like reposted. And the reason I do that is also if one of the various sites that I have, if one ever goes down and just the links are on those other sites and not the text, well, then the links don't work no more. So you try, at least what I try to do on the teaching posts is to get the links as well as the text on each site. So you have multiple, it's kind of like a backup. I'm looking at the news. Digital disaster. Facebook, Google carry fake news on Las Vegas shooting. You know, Mark, that's Howard Kurtz. And Howard Kurtz is the media critic for Fox News. And I just read it, and as I read it, it talks about, and many of the people on Fox are just as political. You know, Shepard Smith, many of them, I'll give you just a few examples that people know about, and that I don't have to give you all the links today. But this, I read the story real quick. I'm just looking at any news update, and it basically showed how Facebook and Google, okay, they had various trending things, and this particular article is criticizing Facebook and Google and Twitter. It says they permitted them to run fake news along with actual legitimate news sites. And the extent of, quote, the fake news was, of course you have people on the left, far left, people on the right, far right, and they all try at times to link a particular thing. So what now the narrative is, it's the far right that has tried to link this man Paddock to ISIS or Daesh or whatever, which it said Russia did it, and they said how fake that is. And you got to remember, just from a few days ago, why it was linked and why there might be connections. And it was linked primarily, meaning in the minds of people, is because reputable news organizations reported correctly that ISIS claimed responsibility for Mr. Paddock. That's where it started. And this entire review by Howard Kurtz is saying the far right had a conspiracy to link Mr. Paddock to ISIS and all. And it shows you, now let me, Mr. Kurtz is just, he's like part of the crowd. And they all run with whatever narrative is popular. Okay, let me give you an example. Say if today's news, let me title this, Trump and Manafort destroyed all of the computers of the emails that they had with collusion with Russia. And as the FBI approached Mr. Manafort's house to do the raid, he took a hammer and with a hammer destroyed his cell phones, took the SIM cards and chips out of the cell phones, and destroyed the computer hard drives and all. After Mr. Manafort was informed by Congress that we want those things as an investigation. What would be the normal route, meaning in the country, in our Justice Department, if that happened? Both conservative and liberal sites and conservative and liberal pundits would all agree that that's a criminal act and that's a crime. Yet all of that actually happened with Hillary Clinton. After being notified that they were going to get various things from her computer server, her cell phones, it also was revealed that Hillary Clinton and her team, they actually destroyed the cell phones and all with hammers, and that even later on, this is a recent revelation in the last few months, when they were told to hand over their cell phones and devices and all, a year or so ago, what they did is they took all of the memory and everything out. So they officially said, here's the empty cell phone. And all of that was treated as there was no proof of anything. And John, what do you think the big crime was that she was hiding? I've discussed that before, and it was obvious to anybody that followed. It was a lot that they were hiding had to do with the Benghazi thing. I don't want to redo the whole thing, but it's kind of obvious that there were particular decisions that Hillary Clinton made when she was at the State Department that were politically oriented and possibly led to the death of the ambassador in Benghazi, Libya. You could see that. But then, if you said you didn't have proof, it's because she destroyed that. She destroyed a whole month's worth of conversation she had, and it was later shown. And anybody, if Mr. Trump or Manafort or any of them did that, that's the crime. And he would be impeached and face imprisonment. But in collusion with all the media and many of my liberal friends believe till this day that what she did, that because the FBI guy Comey said, we found she didn't intend to do wrong. The reason we didn't bring charges on all that is she didn't intend to do wrong. That in itself was a crime. The destruction of those things. But the media all played that, and there's so many, and I don't want to, I'm just showing you how this whole thing operates. So from a so-called conservative news site, which is Fox, their media critic, Howard Kurtz, who I do watch, he's showing, and then he's saying how reputable news sites like the New York Times, he said, would never run a rumor. From memory, you had a particular accusation made against Trump. What was the accusation, John? Mr. Comey and our intelligence agencies during the campaign of the presidential election, I could think of a million of them, they actually had a discussion with Trump and said, we have possession of particular documents that the Russians actually might be able to use to blackmail you, Mr. Trump. And we just want to inform you. What were the documents? It was intelligence by a British spy guy who used to work for the British intelligence. And it was a document that said the Russians had video of Donald Trump with prostitutes in a hotel in Russia, maybe Moscow. And the video showed Mr. Trump with these prostitutes, and they were peeing. The prostitutes were peeing on the bed where Mr. Obama formerly stayed at that particular hotel, and they had video of Trump doing that. Now, this was a famous document that they informed Mr. Trump of. Now, the media, and I think the New York Times, they actually ran that, meaning that was a rumor, and the next, as soon as they had notice of these things, also women that said, Trump did this, Trump did that, and I know the video where he said, grab a woman, okay, I get that. But as soon as accusations were made, the media ran with those things, and they ran with some of those things as if they were fact. And John, what happened when Trump was advised by Comey and others that this was out there? There was indication by our own intelligence agencies that it was possibly not a true report, meaning this was something that could have been put together by people called false intelligence, and you try to disseminate it. But how did we know about it? The so-called mainstream media jumped on that, and some reported it that it was true. And I remember one day, this is true, I clicked on CNN online. They never said anything about this, and I never heard this reported. They had I swear this is true, they had an image, because I check the news all the time. This is months back. they had an image of a man that was blonde-headed, and it was a porn image that the CNN had. The man was naked in a bed. You couldn't see his face. I swear this was up there. And I forget if they had like women around him and all. It was kind of blurred. There was no reason, they didn't give a description. This was on the CNN side. Who put it up, I don't know. I thought maybe later that night the mainstream news would report, and then it came down. They didn't even say if it was a so-called video image or something they had of Trump. And then I remember when Mr. Comey was going to testify before Congress. Just look at how they lie. Mr. Comey, when he was going to testify before Congress, Trump said that Mr. Comey, James Comey, former head of the FBI, Trump had said, Comey informed me 3 times that I was not under criminal investigation. Now, a lot of people think Trump lied at that point when he said that. And there were media people out there, Clapper or people like that, who said no, they would never do something like that. So a lot of people, when Trump said that Comey told me 3 times on the phone and then we had a meeting, a lot of people, Trump supporters as well as Trump haters, believed he lied. That is a lie, that is a lie. Now if you remember, it was at that point that Trump actually said later, before Comey testified, after he got fired, Trump tweeted, Comey better hope that I don't have recordings of the meetings we had and all. Meaning Trump, at that moment, knew that Comey actually told him 3 times. Everybody thought Trump lied. But Trump knew Comey told him 3 times you're not under criminal investigation. Then a so-called mainstream news organization, might have been Washington Post, one of those, they put in the news as fact that Trump lied and that Comey is going to testify before Congress that Trump lied about that. But understand, at that moment, everybody pretty much thought Trump did lie. And I don't think Trump realizes even what happened. Because when he said in his tweet, Comey better hope I don't have recordings of it, then the Democrats and liberals, is he recording secret recordings at Watergate? And Comey went before Congress. I watched the hearings, some of them. And he admitted that he did indeed tell Trump 3 times that he was not under criminal investigation. Then Trump said, Comey changed his testimony. He was going to lie, but when he saw my tweet, he told the truth. It's possible that's exactly what happened. But the other possibility is the mainstream organization, quote, the Real News, what they did was they said secret sources told them that Comey was going to testify that Trump lied. They might have just made that up, thinking themselves, like a lot of people, that Trump lied about that. And then when they put it in the paper, that Trump would come out on a tweet storm and maybe resign or whatever. Nobody really thought in the pundits that Trump was telling the truth. And it seems as if Comey was forced to kind of tell the truth there. So what is this point? They report lies and rumors all the time. All the time. And I just gave you that one example. Now, whether we are going to discuss a little of whatever news comes up today, that's what we want you to see. I understand there's a lot of sites that get into all other types of things, but I want you to see that narrative. There's a whole public on the liberal side who believe that, well, the destruction of things and beating cell phones with hammers and handing them over without, that all of that, there's still no proof of a crime, though that itself is a crime. And then they wonder why did the FBI director not actually charge Hillary Clinton? Because they're like old people. When I taught Acts 24, which was yesterday, it was you'll see it in a week when I post the teaching video. But there's so much manipulation, you see, and I tried to bring some of that out because Paul goes before. He's going to court now in the book of Acts 24. And then he goes before a famous man by the name of Felix, who is the governor of in Caesarea, which was the region that the Roman Empire had authority over Judea and the Sanhedrin and the courts that the Jews had. And so Paul, in these various court things that were happening in these chapters of the book of Acts, when he goes before the governor, you see all types of manipulation. And then in that chapter, you could go read it, it'll post in a week. Even the guy that was considered non-corrupt, meaning Felix, because the high priest Ananias, who was like the local court, they had a scheme to have Paul executed. 40 men said, let's kill Paul. And Ananias, the so-called high priest, you ask for Lysias, who is the commander, to let Paul come down to you. We're going to kill him. All this collusion. And then the appeal kind of makes it all the way to this man by the name of Felix, who's governor. And then when he listens to both sides, it says he puts Paul in jail. He sits there for a couple of years. This is a chapter. And it says he went and visited Paul. And I'm not going to redo now, but the man Felix was married to a lady by the name of Drusilla, who was the daughter of Herod Antipas the first, the sister of Herod Antipas the second, and she herself had a son by the name of Antipas. And he died in a very famous recorded event of a natural disaster in AD 79. And I'll leave that. Which event was that, John? You'll have to wait for that video. If you look it up, it took place in Pompeii. Okay, I did some history on that teaching. But this man Felix, it says, when Paul was in jail, he's supposed to be true news, not fake news. It says he often met with Paul. And the Bible says, hoping to receive money from Paul so he would let Paul out of jail. And as I taught that chapter, I said, look at the corruption, the dishonesty. Howard Kurtz, he's giving the whole speech about, because they want to feel like they're reputable. And that gets him in with the so-called media establishment. And then they're going after Facebook and Google and Twitter and saying, and this is the narrative now, they ran fake news by right-wing Christian sites that connected Paddock with ISIS. Isn't that so amazing? Even from a so-called conservative side. So now you're 3 days after it, where the connection of Paddock to ISIS actually came out from the mainstream media. AP wrote, as others reported, that ISIS claimed responsibility. Now, a few days later, even Fox News is saying, where did we get this idea? Look at the lies. Look at the manipulation. And it's not just in one particular news. And people believe those lies. So many of the people in the media who really feel like they're out for truth and to defend, so many of them believe that there was, like I said, the whole Hillary thing, the destruction of a server in itself is a crime after you're notified by Congress. And if they didn't do search warrants at her house at 2 in the morning, wake her up, pick the lock, which they did to Manafort. Can you imagine if when they got into Manafort's house? Where's that server, that computer we notified you? Oh, I had it wiped, bleach bit. And could you imagine Mueller? And if Comey was, can you imagine him saying, well, we believe him. Why did you bleach bit it, Manafort? Oh, I had pictures of me and my kids on there, and I didn't want. Oh, so you? Okay, well, that's not a crime. You kidding? That man would be put in prison. And so many in the media would agree that that man would be put in prison, and Trump would be put in prison if they did that with cell phones and collusion and all. And those same people believe that anybody that says, and why did Hillary Clinton get away with all that? Those same liberal Democrats in the media believe, oh, there was nothing wrong. They're unable to even see truth. One of the chaps, I'm not going to teach it, but I taught it Sunday. It's still got to come up. But they were telling God, this is Ezekiel, I think 18, one of the verses from the Mass. They were telling God, you're unfair and you're unequal. The prophet rebukes him. Says, you call me unequal, unfair? He says, look at yourselves. And this is all I would say. I am not a conservative conspiratorialist by any means. But you are so deceptive, the media. You are so unbalanced. You would call newspapers that would report what happened with the so-called documents, John, that had Trump supposedly with hookers, and it was referred to as the golden showers. That was fake, because when they notified Trump that Russia has this on you, this was reported in the media right there, as soon as it came out, and they reported it as true. It was later found out that that whole thing was fake. It was actually the British spy that leaked that, and our government and our papers. He actually was part of organizations that do fake investigation. But all the papers reported that. Can you imagine when Bill Clinton had all the women that said they did these things and did these things? Do you know New York Times and mainstream media, even after years of those accusations, they were asked once, some of the women have claimed for many, 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 many years that Clinton did various things, golden showers type things. And they said, why didn't you ever report on some of those? And the media said, we didn't have enough information after many years, 10 years, 15 years of certain Kathleen Williams, we didn't have enough. But then as soon as the thing leaked, that Trump had hookers pissing on a bed in Obama's bed in Russia, it's news. Fake, and it was actually disseminated by an anti-group. It was, getting anti-information in a political campaign, and that was all leaked as true. Now, did any of that leaking play a role in when people read those? Did any of that, because it was fake, did that play a role in whether or not, nobody asked that. Of course, Trump won. But they ask till this day, what did the role of the investigations of Hillary? Hillary got away with crimes. A normal person, if that was Trump that did those things. And when he tweets stuff like that. He tweeted about she bleach fit this, she did that, and he's telling the truth. They hate that he would tweet it. But that's an honest view of what happened there. That's an honest view of unequal balances. So we'll start with that. I want to thank Howard Kurtz and the media for informing us and telling us that the right-wing conspiratorialists have associated Paddock with ISIS. Thank you, Mr. Kurtz. And said, and no reputable news organization will report a rumor, but yet we had the golden showers, hookers pissing on the bed, and you all reported that. Thank you for telling us. I wonder when they go to press at night, what are we going to talk about today on world news? The people that are now writing for those news agencies, maybe 15, 20 years ago, you had adults that wouldn't engage in a lot of this stuff you see. But they're young kids now that are doing these, and say, oh, go say this tonight. Go say Trump compared the dead kids to basketballs. Okay, yes, we'll say it. I guess if they told world news, tonight's news is the sun is burnt out. Let's make that the news tonight. There's no more sun. We do know by science that we've got so many fusion. And would the news people say, wait a minute, I see something in the sky, and it seems like that's the sun. It says, no. You report that the sun burnt out tonight. And I guess that they would report it. Because that they don't come to conclusions from actual observations of things that are real. Like I just explained, how many did I give you? they come to conclusions based on whatever narrative they want you to see. So I won 25 minutes. This is the first one today.